Hello and welcome to my lecture review using the JBL book, Risk Management Fundamentals. This book is written by Gibson and Igonor. It's again, Managing Risk in Information Systems, 3rd edition. It is a Jones and Bartlett book, ISBN number 9781284183719. Again, they own all the copyrights. All I am doing is preparing lecture review for the PowerPoints that they own the rights to. So with that said, let's jump in and let's see what we can do. Chapter 7, Identifying Assets and Activities to be Protected. Alright, so in this module, we are learning about the components of and approaches to effective risk management and risk assessments within an organization. So again, approaches and components. Identify assets and activities to protect within the organization. So assets, activities could also be like processes, not just specific assets. So key concepts we're looking at are the systems, access, availability, the processes, whether it's manual or automated functionality. We're going to identify the software, the hardware, personnel, data, and assets. Data, information, data/information, hardware, personnel. We're going to look at assets and inventory management within our 7 domains. 7 domains, you're going to notice that throughout the JBL series, they go back to that 7 domains. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. And we're going to look at facilities and supplies needed to maintain the business operation. Because again, at the end of the day, the business still has to operate. Ideally, when we're looking at core systems, core features, we want things to be up 99.999. Now that's ideally. In reality, we normally are willing to tolerate 99.9, 99.5. It really depends on how much money you have. Because sometimes to go from 95 to 99 is a high dollar amount, and for some companies it's not worth it. For other companies it is worth it. So sometimes when the company is sitting at 99.0, they want to figure out how to go to 99.5. Again, they look at the cost of becoming or adding to that uptime percentage, and the cost or potential cost of if they're not. We're going to be looking at availability in terms of failover systems. We're going to be looking at data, so looking at RAID, and identify the value of the different service providers and how they can increase in value for our operations. Again, all looking at availability and being able to add value. So what does this entail? This entails basically being able to build systems in such a way where you have availability of data. So you may go to a web portal, Google for example, and you think you're connecting this to one database server or one web server, and in reality they have multiple servers, all of them pointing back to some type of centralized storage on the back end. That way, if any one unit goes down or any collection of units go down, they just reroute the traffic to a good one, and again, they still have access to all of the same data. So for system functions, manual or automated. Manual methods are like written records, where an automated is going to increase value to the customer, value to the company, make sure that processes are current, does provide a certain level of protection of data, but it also keeps things more accurate. There are going to be more digital records. Digital records. It's going to be more up-to-date records. And things like that. Automated and electronic system functions are only increasing the protection that we have. Hardware assets could be infrastructure, networking, like routers, switches, access points. Network appliances could be firewalls, appliances for spam or AV spam or load balancers. Computers could be servers or desktops or other end devices, depending on the asset you're looking at. So what information are you going to need to know? This is actually a big one because I'm dealing with a client now. They're wanting protection, and I ask a simple question such as, how many assets do you have? And they can't even give me a number. So having a current and accurate, semi-accurate number of devices. Where are the devices located? Is there an inventory sheet that lists the manufacturer, model numbers, how many resources like RAM, NICs, BIOS version, CPU type, end of life, and end of support details? OSs, patches, software. These are things that you're going to need to know on your hardware. Software assets. Okay, you can also define some of this within the software, but what applications are installed, versions of software, BIOS versions, operating system patches, versions, operating system version by itself. So again, when we're looking at OS specific things, it's looking at the hardware. Name of operating system, service pack, specific service number or release number. For the application, it could be the name of the application, the version, the service pack, update materials. It could be purchasing materials. It could be who is maintaining certain things. Who is the key contact? Who's the contract vendor? Contact point for the software. And that could also be personnel, but personnel isn't always necessarily tied directly to the software, but personnel are who's working for the organization. When any function or process depends on a single person, that person becomes point of failure, or the single point of failure. So we don't really want to do like separation of duties or job rotation. And mandatory vacation to make sure there's no fraud happening. You can reduce risk by hiring more personnel, cross-training, rotating jobs, mandatory vacation days, separation of duties, things like that. So data and information. Data should have access controls, making sure that you have your CIA triad, making sure you have good backups and test for recovery. You might also need to classify the data. Is it proprietary? Is it private? Is it public? Are there variations of the data that's private that needs to be kept even more private? So again, you're normally going to have your generic sphere, proprietary for within the organization, private to keep within the organization, and public, and that's going to be the classification. We could then go further and categorize the data and assets. So in this example, looking at information and data assets, organizational, customer data, warehousing data, IP data, data mining. So these are just some of the main categories that we may rank or categorize our material with. Again, not a complete list, but assets and inventory management within. So when we're looking at hardware and software, we need to know what's installed, and we need to have a current up-to-date version. That's why I said with hardware, you don't necessarily need to have, the most accurate or best guess, but you need to be kind of close. So you need to have some type of inventory management so that you can go and verify and track and everything. Asset management is also used to manage all types of assets in a much detailed inventory management system. Again, it's hard to make decisions if you don't have data. One of the biggest data points is, what are your assets? So here are 7 domains: user domains, workstation domains, LAN domains, LAN-to-WAN domains, WAN domains, system application domain, and our remote access domain. 1, 2. Are 7 domains. So by identifying the facilities and supplies needed to keep the business running, we need to identify all mission critical systems, applications, processes, and personnel. That way, we know in a crunch who do we absolutely need and what systems and applications are necessary. A business impact analysis, a BIA plan. That way, we understand what systems, applications, processes, and personnel are the most critical in appropriate order. That way, in the middle of an emergency, we can go, oh, these 2 systems are down. This system takes priority because our impact analysis says this actually helps run the organization. The BIA aids in identifying and prioritizing processes, systems, applications, personnel, and allows us to identify and build a continuity plan, a business continuity plan. That allows us to figure out how to make sure we have the appropriate supplies, facilities, and recovery points for all identified systems, applications, processes, and personnel. Again, the BIA identifies them, the BCP puts them together, and then we have a disaster recovery plan, which helps define the plan for recovering if an emergency does occur. With that, we also have insurance plans. We have 2 generic insurance plans, a business liability, asset replacement, and maybe a cyber insurance plan. These together allow us to at least have basic functionality for our business if there's ever an emergency that we need to deal with, recover from, or stay operational. Alright, so let's look at some of these more in depth. So first we have our business impact analysis plan, our BIA. Again, normally you're going to be working with an appropriate person with skills, but in this process you're going to find the scope, identify the objects, look at all mission critical components. That's a big thing here. You need to prioritize everything mission critical for the organization. And that includes functions, processes, personnel, systems. You're going to map functions and processes to technology-based systems. That way you can prioritize and rank them. That way, in an emergency, you know what process you're going to follow. You know this system takes priority over that system because it's all been prioritized. That aids you in developing your business continuity plan. Again, you're going to be working with a third party or outsourced individual to develop this. Identify the scope, identify key business areas, critical functions, dependencies, what would be acceptable cost versus appropriate downtime, and you create a plan to maintain operations. And again, within this, we develop phases: notification, action phase, recovery phase, reconstitution phase, and remember that it would be a cycle. We also then have our recovery plans, both business continuity plans and our disaster recovery plans. Again, business continuity ensures how to respond in an emergency, identify all the systems, acceptable time frames, including downtimes, and the BCP will be part of your BIA and DRP planning. For a disaster recovery plan, it will be a key component of our business continuity plan, and that will be details to recover core systems. After that, we end up with our different forms of insurance: business, general, professional, product insurance, and cybersecurity insurance. Then we're also going to end up with a replacement insurance plan. So if something happens, how do we replace assets? Act of God versus life insurance versus other forms of disaster. And again, and another form of insurance that we'll probably be having in a modern day network would be cyber insurance. All right, that is it for this module. Again, this was a high-level overview of key components. Questions, thoughts, issues, concerns, please feel free to reach out. Thank you. Alrighty, well, thank you. That concludes this lecture review. Again, all material presented in this PowerPoint lecture was copyrighted by Jones and Bartlett Learning. So they own the copyright. I am just providing a lecture on the PowerPoints that they provided. With that said, if you have any questions, thoughts, issues, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me, leave a comment, get in touch with me, and I will get those addressed as quickly as I can. Thank you.